So in this video we're going to look at the question, what is the universe made of? So you may think that it's made up of the same stuff which makes up planet Earth and that makes up us and all the living things around us, and you'd be roughly correct. However, really the two elements that you'll find if you could account for all the different atoms in the universe are hydrogen and helium. Now obviously there's a lot of hydrogen in us, in all kinds of sugars. Most things have got hydrogen and carbon attached to them, and helium perhaps not as often in human bodies, in human life. However, in the universe, those are the two elements that make up most of 99.9% of the universe. Elements such as silicon, carbon, and gold, every kind of other element are really concentrated into clouds in space, stars, and planets. So if you were looking for elements other than hydrogen and helium, you'd really be having to look for those three places. So we've got those three places where most of the matter is going to be found, but really the universe is also made up of four different forces, and really they are four invisible forces because you can't see them. Okay, you can only see the effects of the force, but you can't really see the force themselves. So ones that you might have heard of are things like gravity. So gravity is a very weak force, and it's the force of attraction between two objects. So the Earth is a massive object, and because it's so massive, its force of gravity is relatively large. However, the force of its gravity really only exists for 20-30 miles, which in terms of space terms is tiny, is absolutely minute. But because us as humans we're so small, the force of gravity allows us to stay on the planet's surface. The other force you might have heard of is electromagnetism, and that is basically magnetic forces. So if you ever used a magnet, which I'm sure you do, even in your daily life, that's one of the forces, electromagnetism. The ones you won't have heard of, or you might not have heard of, are what are called strong and weak nuclear forces. Strong and weak nuclear forces only really operate on the tiny nuclei of atoms, and what they do is to hold the tiny subatomic particles together in the atoms themselves. So they actually hold the nuclei of the atoms together, and that's what those nucleus and the electrons that orbit them make up the atom. Those atoms are what everything else is made up of in the universe, including everything that we see, us, everything.